This is a recording of our playbook. Download the playbook, configuration spreadsheet, and ABAY lab environment from our website. Welcome to our whiteboard drawing, Enterprise 20 Dial Plan Build, Patterns for No Delayed Dialing. In this drawing, we look at the patterns and class of service that Enterprise 20 deploys to remove the delay for 7-digit dialing. Let's start with a quick overview and review. For an overview of the Enterprise 20 Dial Plan Build, see the drawing Dial Plan Build Overview. For basic concepts, see our whiteboard drawings, Route Patterns Part 1, Route Patterns Part 2, Dial Plan Hierarchy, and Class of Service. Remember our objectives for the dial plan from the discussion in Dial Plan Overview. Everything is good so far with these objectives, but we'll spend some more time on the second one now. Remember that the Enterprise 20 Dial Plan Build supports abbreviated dialing at all sites. This is done. Overlapping 7 and 10-digit local dialing with or without post-dial delay, also done. In this drawing, we remove the post-dial delay for 7-digit calls. The following classes of service: internal, local including toll-free, long distance, international, unrestricted, and no 911 versions of the above. Done. And ensures that call forwarding, AAR and CFR, presence, call lists, and mobility all work together as well as possible. This is done in the next drawings. In this drawing, we remove the delay from 7-digit dialing. That's the only thing we discuss. You need to decide whether the work you need to do is worth the benefit you get. Overlapping 7 and 10-digit dialing is more common when using local route groups. With local route groups, you have overlapping 7 and 10-digit dialing if you have 7-digit dialing anywhere. There are a growing number of places where you normally use 10-digit dialing that have special 7-digit numbers. For example, 310 Bell in Toronto. It's your choice. You don't remove the delay. 7-digit numbers will sometimes have post-dial delay, and the dial plan will be easier to configure and manage. Or you do. There's no post-dial delay for 7-digit dialing, but it's more work to configure and manage the dial plan. There are issues with this configuration and call forwarding and mobility. In this drawing, we remove the delay. That's the only thing we discuss in this drawing. You need to decide whether the required work is worth the benefits you get. You need to consider call forwarding and mobility before making a decision. We did the work for Enterprise 20, but we don't have a recommendation one way or the other. Migration from delayed 7-digit dialing to no delayed dialing is not very hard. No changes are required to device configurations. Nothing breaks while you are making the changes. We said it before, a few times I believe. Everything starts with patterns. These are the base patterns we deployed in earlier drawings. In this list, the 7-digit numbers with no end of dial will be delayed when dialed digit by the 10-digit patterns. If you set the T.302 timer down from its default of 15 seconds to 5 seconds, the delay will be only 5 seconds. If you dial a 7-digit number like 310-9999, there will be a 5-second delay before ring out. Be careful. There will be no delay when dialing 310-0000. Why? We'll let you figure this one out yourself. We have the same delay when configuring call forwarding. We can remove the post-dial delay for the 7-digit patterns by replacing the general 10-digit patterns with more specific patterns, including local area codes. If we remove post-dial delay for the 7-digit patterns, then we no longer need the 7-digit patterns with end-of-dial indicator pound. This is what the list looks like when we remove the delay from 7-digit dialing. We need to add new site-specific 10-digit patterns with local area codes. What is a local area code? A local area code is an area code in a 10-digit number, a number where we don't dial 1 first. An area code is an area code in an 11-digit number, a number where we dial 1 first. We need to find the local area codes for each gateway. For each site, we need to include 10-digit patterns containing the local area codes used at that site. We'll have no general 10-digit patterns. We can use the local calling guide to find area codes that are local area codes at our gateway. Navigate to this address. Once there, click on the Search Area Code /prefix/OCN link. Donate to the site. We did. Put the area code, NPA, and office code, NXX, of your gateway in the indicated boxes. Our Ashbridges Bay site, an FXO port with the number 416-691-1036, has NPA 416 and NXX 691. Then click Submit. On the next screen, click here on the NPA NXX 416-691. All of the numbers that are local are listed in the display, partially shown here. Any area code shown here can be a local area code at our Ashbridges Bay site. These are the local area codes at our A-Bay 691 site. Just look them up in the display. Scroll through first and find all the local area codes and write them down. This should take all of 5 minutes. For each site, we need to build the 10-digit patterns for the local area codes used at that site. We'll put the patterns in a site-specific partition, XXX, local areas partition, at each site. For example, for A-Bay 691, we have the pattern shown in the A-Bay 691 local areas partition. You could use a route filter or 7 individual patterns. All area codes with local dialing need to be included, even if some numbers for that area code are long distance. For example, from Ashbridges Bay, some 905 numbers are local and some long distance. Local 905 numbers will match this pattern. Long distance 905 numbers will match this pattern. Here are the patterns for the Hamilton 601 site. Here are the patterns for the Winnipeg 602 site. Here are the route filters we'll have for the 10 Enterprise 20 sites. Enterprise 20 uses route filters. The CVDs suggest not using route filters in general. We use route filters because it's easier to list the patterns for illustration. Feel free to use the specific 10-digit patterns instead. Here are the patterns we'll have for Enterprise 20, where we've removed the general 10-digit patterns to prevent post-dial delay for the shorter 7-digit patterns. We're showing the 10-digit local patterns for the A-Bay 691, Hamilton 601, and Winnipeg 602 sites. The Provide Outside Dial Tone checkbox should be checked, and the Call Classification drop-down box should be set to Off-Net for all patterns starting with a 9. Don't forget about this for the new patterns. This table is from the Route Patterns tab in the No Delayed Dialing Blocking Online's configuration spreadsheet. You can see the content better if you download the spreadsheet from our website. Here are the route patterns we'll have for the 10 Enterprise 20 sites. Here is something for you to do. Using the local calling guide, pick 3 or 4 of your gateways and determine the local area codes for those gateways. It shouldn't take long. Now let's talk about class of service and the dial plan hierarchy. We'll adjust our unrestricted calling search spaces to include the new partitions. Each site will have a site-specific unrestricted calling search space, XXX, unrestricted calling search space, containing the internal partition, the site-specific internal partition, XXX internal partition in the drawing, the NANP partition, and the XXX local areas partition. Remember what our device calling search spaces looked like when we didn't care about the delay. Devices at each site, phones in particular, will be configured with a site-specific calling search space, XXX, unrestricted calling search space. This calling search space includes the site-specific internal partition, XXX internal partition, the enterprise-wide internal partition, and the NANP partition for dialing any number in the North American numbering plan. Phones at the Toronto site will be configured with the Toronto 55 unrestricted calling search space, containing the Toronto 55 internal partition, the internal partition, and the NANP partition. Phones at the Hamilton site will be configured with Hamilton 601 unrestricted calling search space, containing the Hamilton 601 internal partition, the internal partition, and the NANP partition. Phones at the Winnipeg site will be configured with the Winnipeg 602 unrestricted calling search space, containing the Winnipeg 602 internal partition, the internal partition, and the NANP partition. For our new device calling search spaces, all we do is add the site-specific local areas partition to the site XXX unrestricted calling search spaces that we've already configured. Devices at each site, phones in particular, are configured with a site-specific calling search space, XXX unrestricted calling search space, just like before. Phones at the Toronto site will still be configured with the Toronto 55 unrestricted calling search space, containing the Toronto 55 internal partition, the internal partition, and the NANP partition, but also now the Toronto 55 local areas partition. Phones at the Hamilton and Winnipeg sites will be configured similarly. Because the line partitions take priority over the device partitions, we can take away calling privileges by blocking the patterns on the line. We'll adjust the block local partition to include the new patterns so that our line internal calling search space blocking calling search spaces will work properly. This table is from the Blocking Translation Patterns tab in the No Delayed Dialing Blocking on Lines configuration spreadsheet. You can see the content better if you download the spreadsheet from our website. Here are the blocking translation patterns we'll have for the 10 Enterprise 20 sites. We'll put this online so you can see it better. Now if you dial a 7-digit number like 310-9999, there will be no waiting before ring out. We also remove the delay when configuring call forwarding. Migration from delayed 7-digit dialing to no delayed dialing is not very hard. No changes are required to device configurations. Nothing breaks while you are making the changes. Migration from delayed 7-digit dialing to no delayed dialing can be done in 5 easy steps. Use the local calling guide to add XXX local areas 10 route filter for each site X. Add XXX local areas partition for 10-digit dialing for each site. Add XXX local areas partition to the XXX unrestricted calling search space for each site X. Add 9.at with XXX local areas 10 route filter patterns in partition XXX local areas partition for each site X. Delete the general 10-digit patterns and the 7-digit patterns with end of dial pound. Don't delete the general patterns until all sites have specific 10-digit patterns. Coming up next, Enterprise 20 dial plan build, call forwarding. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.